Hey, 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 just listen to my story. Life has a funny way of throwing surprises at you when you least expect them. That's exactly what happened to me on what seemed like an ordinary Wednesday evening. I had just come home from work, the sound of my heels clicking against the wooden floor as I stepped inside. It had been a long, exhausting day, and all I wanted was a hot bath to wash away the stress. Little did I know, that evening would leave an unforgettable mark on my life, one that would change everything in our household. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can keep bringing you more captivating true stories like this one. And don't forget to watch until the end and hit that like button. This story is going to be incredibly interesting. The house was quiet when I walked in, which wasn't unusual. My husband Thomas had mentioned earlier that he'd be attending a late meeting. He'd been working long hours, trying to meet an important project deadline. That left only Logan, Thomas's son from his previous marriage, at home. Logan was 20, a reserved but polite young man who rarely caused any trouble. He worked part-time at the local hardware store and usually spent his free time in his room. Though we weren't especially close, we shared a cordial relationship based on mutual respect. Over the years, I'd grown used to the quietness whenever it was just the two of us at home. As I set my bag on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water, I noticed Logan's truck parked in the driveway. That struck me as odd. He usually worked the evening shift. I called his name casually, my voice echoing through the stillness of the house. No response. Assuming he was in his room with his headphones on or maybe napping, I didn't think much of it. After finishing my water, I headed upstairs to change into something more comfortable. Passing by the bathroom, I heard the faint sound of running water and noticed the door was slightly ajar, which was unusual. Logan was meticulous about his privacy, always making sure doors were firmly closed, especially the bathroom door. My curiosity piqued. I hesitated for a moment before gently pushing the door open just a bit more. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. Logan stood by the sink, his back turned toward me, his shoulders hunched in concentration. His movements were awkward and almost frantic. He was shirtless, his jeans hanging loosely on his hips, and he appeared to be scrubbing something out of view with a washcloth. The quiet creak of the door startled him. He spun around, eyes wide with panic. "Oh my God, I didn't hear you come in," he exclaimed, his voice shaky. I froze, equally startled. My eyes flicked between him and the washcloth, and a wave of awkwardness crashed over me. It wasn't the scene I had expected to walk into, and I instantly felt guilty for intruding. I'm so sorry," I stammered, turning my gaze away. "I didn't mean to intrude." I quickly reached for the door handle, ready to retreat and give him the privacy he clearly wanted. But just as I was about to close the door, Logan's voice stopped me. "Wait," he said, his tone almost pleading. "It's not what you think." I hesitated, my hand still hovering over the doorknob. Part of me wanted to bolt down the hallway and pretend this never happened, but another part of me was curious his voice wasn't defensive. Instead, it was filled with embarrassment and desperation. Against my better judgment, I turned back toward him, keeping my eyes on his face. "Okay," I said softly, trying to keep my tone calm. "What's going on?" Logan looked down, his face flushed. He seemed to struggle to find the right words, his hands fidgeting with the washcloth. Finally, he let out a deep sigh. "It's just, I didn't know who else to ask," he admitted. "Ask about what?" I pressed gently. He shifted uncomfortably, still avoiding eye contact. "It's personal," he said quietly. "I've been dealing with some stuff, and I don't know what to do. Dad's not here, and you're the only other person I can talk to." His vulnerability caught me off guard. Logan had always been independent, rarely opening up about personal matters. The fact that he was turning to me for help gave me pause. I stepped into the bathroom and closed the door slightly behind me to give us some privacy. "All right," I said, my voice soft. "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" At first, Logan spoke in vague terms, stumbling over his words as he tried to explain his discomfort. I listened patiently, piecing together what he was trying to say. It quickly became clear that this was a sensitive, deeply personal issue, one he felt too embarrassed to discuss with his dad. As he talked, I felt a pang of empathy. It's never easy to ask for help, especially about something so private. I could see the struggle in his eyes, the internal battle between needing guidance and fearing judgment. Okay, I said thoughtfully when he finished. First of all, it's good that you're paying attention to these things. It shows you care about your health. Second, there's absolutely no shame in asking questions or seeking advice. Logan looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and relief. Really? You don't think it's weird? Not at all, I assured him. Everyone has questions about their body at some point. It's completely normal. We spent the next several minutes talking, and I did my best to offer him advice from my own knowledge and experience. I kept the conversation practical and straightforward, avoiding anything that might make him more uncomfortable. As we talked, I saw the tension ease from his face. By the time we finished, he looked visibly calmer, even managing a small smile. Thanks, he said quietly. I didn't think I could talk to anyone about this. I returned his smile, feeling relieved that the awkwardness had passed. You're welcome, Logan. And remember, it's always okay to ask for help. No one has all the answers. As I left the bathroom, I felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I was glad I could be there for him in a moment of need. And on the other, I knew this evening had changed something between us, perhaps for the better. Logan had always been distant, keeping his thoughts to himself, but our unexpected conversation one evening changed something between us. Though life in the household continued as normal on the surface, a quiet tension lingered. I couldn't quite define it, but I knew our relationship had shifted. In the days following that talk, Logan remained reserved but more aware, and I found myself thinking about him in a new light. Beneath his quiet demeanor lay an emotional depth I hadn't seen before. The distance between us began to close slowly. One Friday evening, as I prepared dinner, Logan returned from work looking tired but more at ease. We ate in near silence until he finally spoke, thanking me for listening the other night. His sincerity softened my heart, and for the first time, our conversation felt real, free of awkwardness or formality. We talked about his studies, his job, and the show we were both watching, and though it was a small step, it was a step forward. A week later, on a quiet evening, Logan surprised me again. He stood hesitantly in the doorway, his voice barely above a whisper as he asked if we could talk. When he finally spoke, his words stunned me. He wanted to tell his dad, Thomas, about what he was going through. It was a moment of vulnerability and courage, and I knew it marked an important step not just in his relationship with Thomas, but in his journey to understanding himself. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened to me on an ordinary Wednesday evening. I came home exhausted from work, ready to unwind, unaware that the night ahead would change everything in our household. The house was quiet. My husband, Thomas, had a late meeting, and his son, Logan, was supposed to be at work. But when I saw Logan's truck in the driveway, I grew curious. Calling out his name brought no response, so I assumed he was in his room. But as I passed the bathroom, I noticed the door slightly ajar and the faint sound of running water. What I saw when I pushed the door open a bit stopped me in my tracks. Logan stood at the sink, shirtless and scrubbing something frantically with a washcloth. Startled, he spun around, his face flushed with panic. I apologized for intruding, ready to leave, but his voice stopped me. Wait, it's not what you think. He seemed embarrassed and desperate, and I could tell he needed someone to talk to. Hesitating, I stayed and gently asked what was going on. Logan opened up about a personal issue he didn't know how to handle, one he felt too awkward discussing with his dad. I listened patiently and offered the best advice I could, keeping the conversation calm and supportive. By the end, Logan looked relieved. Thanks, he whispered. I didn't think I could talk to anyone about this. In the days that followed, things felt different. Logan and I weren't especially close before, but that conversation built a new understanding between us. There was an unspoken tension, but also a growing sense of trust. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Logan surprised me again. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began, his cheeks coloring. "Thank you for listening." I reassured him that I was always there for him. Our conversations became more open after that, and I could see him starting to come out of his shell. A week later, Logan approached me while I was watching TV. "I think I need to talk to Dad," he said quietly. "I don't know how, but I think he needs to know what I'm going through." I smiled, proud of the growth he was showing. "That's a big step, Logan, and I think Thomas will appreciate you coming to him." The next day, Logan and Thomas finally had that talk. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw Logan speaking earnestly and Thomas listening with concern and warmth. It was a pivotal moment, a step toward healing and connection. As weeks passed, the tension eased. Logan became more himself, and Thomas made an effort to be more present. We even took a day trip to the lake, where laughter and shared moments strengthened our bond. Watching Logan joke and connect with his dad filled me with hope. That night, as I lay in bed reflecting on everything, I realized how far we'd come as a family. Logan's journey was just beginning, but I knew we were on the right path together. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt, true life experiences. And don't forget to like this video. Your support means the world.